Hi everybody! In this video, you're going to learn 5 preposition rules about using prepositions correctly in sentences. In the video description, you can print the worksheet to take notes and answer practice questions as you watch. If this video helps you, click subscribe to get automatic notifications of new videos on my channel at youtube.com/EnglishUnits. This video is part 3 of a 3-part video series, and the topics we'll cover include avoiding of after should, would, and could, object pronouns, using commas with a prepositional phrase, misplaced prepositional phrases, and prepositions at the end of sentences. Rule number 1. Write should have or should have with apostrophe VE, and not should plus the preposition of. The same rule applies to could have and would have. This rule is more like a spelling rule than a preposition rule, but I wanted to include it in this video because many people make mistakes with this rule. Look at these examples. We should have come sooner. It's freezing. We could have invited Angela too. In these examples, we should not use the word of. We need to use the word have or contraction apostrophe VE. Rule 2. Use object pronouns after a preposition, not subject pronouns. So what's a subject pronoun? Subject pronouns include I, you, he, she, we, they, and who. A subject does the action in a sentence. For example, she and I throw a basketball. We know that she and I are subject pronouns in this sentence, not object pronouns, because she and I are doing the action of throwing. Object pronouns include me, you, him, her, us, them, and whom. An object receives the action in a sentence. One way that objects receive action is from a preposition. Here's an example. John throws the ball to her and me. Because we have the preposition to, her and me are the pronouns that must follow, because after a preposition, we must use object pronouns, not subject pronouns. The error that people often make in this situation is they want to use she and I by saying John throws the ball to she and I. That's not correct because she and I are subject pronouns, but after a preposition, we must use object pronouns. Let's see how much you understood. Read each sentence, and where you see parentheses, decide whether you need the subject pronoun or the object pronoun, and why. Now let's check answers. Sentence 1. Send an email to Maria and, is the answer I or me? The answer is me. Why? Because we see the preposition to. After a preposition, we have to use the object pronoun me, not a subject pronoun, which would be I. What about sentence 2? In sentence 2, the answers are subject pronouns they and we. In class, they and we spoke. How do we know that this is the answer? Because we see the verb spoke. These pronouns need to tell us who did the action of speaking, so we need the subject pronouns they and we, not object pronouns them and us. Sentence 3. The correct answers for this sentence are them and us. We know because of the preposition except. When pronouns come right after a preposition, that means the pronouns are the objects of that preposition. So we need to use the object pronouns them and us, not subject pronouns they and we. Rule 3. Use a comma after a prepositional phrase that begins a sentence. However, do not use commas with prepositional phrases in the middle or end of a sentence. Here are some examples of prepositional phrases that we would use at the beginning of a sentence and follow with a comma. At the beach, during our vacation, after the month of June, in the blue sky. Here's an example sentence. At the beach, we relaxed. Here, we do use a comma after the prepositional phrase. Why? Because it's at the beginning of the sentence. Let's look at the next sentence. We relaxed at the beach. Here, we do not use a comma. Why? Because the prepositional phrase is at the end of the sentence. Let's check your knowledge. I'm going to give you 3 sentences, and you decide whether or not you need a comma. Sentence 1. In the ocean, I see a shark. Sentence 2. Many birds fly in the sky. Sentence 3. Around the beach, you find shells. Let's look back at sentence 1. Do we need a comma? Yes, a comma is needed because the prepositional phrase in the ocean is at the beginning of the sentence, so we follow it with a comma. Sentence 2. Many birds fly in the sky. No comma is needed in this sentence because the prepositional phrase in the sky comes at the end of the sentence. Sentence 3. Around the beach, you find shells. A comma is needed because the prepositional phrase around the beach is at the beginning of the sentence, so we follow with a comma. Rule 4. Avoid misplaced prepositional phrases. Basically, this means place a prepositional phrase by the word it describes in a sentence. If we don't do this, sentences can become very confusing. Look at this example. We learned about the spiders in our classroom. Do you see the problem with this sentence? We intended to say, we learned about the spiders when we were in class. But the sentence seems to mean that there are spiders in the classroom and we learned about them. Why does it seem to mean this? Because a prepositional phrase in a sentence describes the word beside it. So, the prepositional phrase in our classroom describes the word spiders in this sentence. How can we correct it so that it no longer sounds like we have spiders in our classroom? We move in our classroom beside the word it actually describes in the sentence. So which word does in our classroom actually describe? Learned. We need to move the phrase in our classroom closer to the verb learned. Let's take this prepositional phrase and move it to the beginning of the sentence. Now we have, in our classroom, we learned about the spiders. See the difference? Now this sentence is correct. Now let's practice. I'm going to give you 3 pairs of sentences. In each pair, one of the sentences is written correctly, while the other sentence contains a misplaced prepositional phrase and creates confusion. Choose the sentence that's written correctly. Sentence pair 1. A. We heard about the tornado in McDonald's. B. In McDonald's, we heard about the tornado. Go ahead and choose the correct sentence and we'll check your answers in a moment. Sentence pair 2. A. For my friend, get an apple in the refrigerator. B. Get an apple for my friend in the refrigerator. Sentence pair 3. A. The teacher told us on Friday we have a test. And B. The teacher told us we have a test on Friday. Pause the video while you think about the answers, and then we'll check them in a moment. Now let's check our answers. Sentence pair 1. The correct answer is sentence B. In McDonald's, we heard about the tornado. How do we know that this is the correct answer? Because, remember, we need to place a prepositional phrase by the word it describes in a sentence. Let's look at the prepositional phrase in McDonald's. In the sentence, which word does this phrase describe? In McDonald's describes the verb heard, because it tells where we heard about the tornado. So, in this sentence, the prepositional phrase in McDonald's appears by the word it describes, which is heard. This is done correctly, and the sentence is clear. When possible, place the prepositional phrase directly beside the word it describes in a sentence. But notice, in this example, that was not possible. That's okay. In cases like this, just place the prepositional phrase as close as you can to the word it describes in the sentence. Now let's look at sentence A. What's the problem with this sentence? In this sentence, the prepositional phrase in McDonald's appears by the word tornado. Remember, we place a prepositional phrase by the word it describes in a sentence. So, when we put in McDonald's by the word tornado, it seems like the tornado is happening in McDonald's. But this is impossible. So, in this sentence, in McDonald's is a misplaced prepositional phrase because it appears by a word that it does not describe. Sentence pair 2. The correct answer is A. For my friend, get an apple in the refrigerator. How do we know that's the correct answer? Again, we need to place the prepositional phrase by the word it describes in a sentence. So, the prepositional phrase in the refrigerator describes which word? It describes the word apple, so it appears beside apple in the sentence. That's correct and the meaning is clear. In sentence B, which word appears by the prepositional phrase in the refrigerator? Friend. This makes it seem like the friend is in the refrigerator. That's confusing. So in sentence B, in the refrigerator is a misplaced prepositional phrase, and we wouldn't want to write a sentence like that because it creates confusion. Sentence pair 3. The correct answer is sentence B. The teacher told us we have a test on Friday. In sentence B, we've placed the prepositional phrase on Friday beside one word, test. This tells us that on Friday describes the test, and therefore that's when the test will take place. In sentence A, notice the problem. On Friday appears in the middle of the sentence. So, did the teacher tell us about the test on Friday, or did we have the test on Friday? We just can't be sure due to the location of this prepositional phrase in this sentence. For this reason, in sentence A, on Friday is a misplaced prepositional phrase and creates confusion, so this item is not the correct answer. Rule 5. Do not use unneeded prepositions at the end of a sentence.
Where are we going to?
Why are we going there for?
These sentences are both incorrect because they contain an unneeded preposition at the end. So, how do we know when a preposition is unneeded? We know because if you remove the preposition, the sentence meaning stays exactly the same and the sentence makes sense. Let's correct these sentences by removing the unneeded preposition at the end.
Where are we going?
Why are we going there?
Great. Now the sentences are correct. So how do we know if a preposition is needed at the end of a sentence? If a preposition is needed, when you remove that preposition, the meaning of the sentence changes, or the sentence no longer makes sense. Look at these 3 examples. Where are you from? I know where Maria is from. What did he step on? First, let's try removing these prepositions. In that case, where are you from becomes where are you. The meaning is totally different without that preposition. That's a sign that the preposition is needed. Similarly, I know where Maria is from becomes I know where Maria is. Again, the meaning has changed so much that we know that preposition is needed. And finally, if we remove on from what did he step on, we get what did he step. That sentence doesn't make sense. That's a sign that on is needed. Now, what if we try to rearrange those sentences so that the preposition is not at the end? From where are you? I know from where Maria is. On what did he step? These sentences sound so awkward that the sentence itself sounds like an error. Finally, many people believe that prepositions should never be used to end a sentence. For this reason, I recommend avoiding ending a sentence with a preposition whenever possible, especially on important documents like job applications, college applications, or important exams. Thank you for watching this video on using prepositions in sentences. If you have questions, place them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer.